Hello, today is the Daf Yomi Pei Zayin 87. It's a Daf Yomi for Purim. It's dedicated for to have a Purim for the Jewish people, a Shemir for the Chayalim, a Tzal for the Shvuyim, and a Yeshua for Am Yisrael. And it is amazing that the Daf Yomi actually mentions Purim. Purim is not mentioned that often in the Talmud, but it is mentioned on the Daf Yomi for Purim. I always love it when that happens. So the Gemara, we're going to start on the bottom line on 86b as we dive in for a Shemir for the Chayalim and Atzah for the Shvuyim and Yeshua for Am Yisrael. Daf Yomi, the last line, discussing about a rebellious elder, it says, Tana Rabbanan, the passing about a rebellious elder says, Hi poemim chadavar, will be something that will be missing from you about mishpat, between blood and blood, between law and law, between affliction and affliction. If there's a dispute, the kamta valisa, you shall rise up and go to the place that Hashem is selecting for you. So what does it mean? Tana Rabbanan ki poemim chadavar. Rashi tells us this. The Gemara tells us on top of a Peizayin Amid Aleph, the Mufla Sheba Bezdin, that the verse is referring to an expert, meaning to say, who can qualify for rebellious elder? You have to be an expert, not if you're just a student. Rashi says, Mumcha Bezdin. That's what it's referring to. Ki poem imcha davar, be something missing from you. Ki poem imcha. What do we learn from the word mimcha? Zeyo eitz, meaning to say that this is referring to somebody who's just giving wisdom about, and the Gemara is going to discuss about the making an Ibor HaChodesh. So therefore, basically, if somebody is having an argument with the Bezdin Agadol about Ibor HaChodesh, then he can fit into the category of what's called a rebellious elder. As it states, Mi Mecha in Nachum, Mimech Yatza Choshev Al Hashem Ra'ah Yoetz Bilial. So from you came out somebody who was plotting against God, evil. Yoetz Bilial. He gave wicked counsel. Davar. What can make a? Again, we're going to go through what is something that fits into the category which a rebellious elder could exist. And says davar. It has to be a matter. So this refers to halacha. Moshe Sinai. This refers to a law which Rashi says is a halacha Moshe Sinai, that he also will be killed for that. Our text doesn't say halacha Moshe Sinai, but Rashi's text says it. When mishpat ze'adin, let's say you argue, Rashi says, about something that's learned out by a gzeira shava, about something that's learned out by a word comparison, because that's what it's referring to. Bein dam or dam, that refers to that if they argue about something having to do with the blood of a nida or the blood of a woman who gave birth or the blood of a ziva, if the dispute is about something like that, they could also be a zakin mamri. Bein dam or dam, bein dam nida, bein dam leda, and dam ziva. Bein din or din, what is that referring to? So that is referring to bein dine nefashos, bein dine nefashos and dine mamanos, and dine makos, whether it is a capital case, a monetary case, or a case of lashes. Bein nego and nega, that let's say they're arguing about whether it is bein nige adam or nige batim or nige begadim. Whether it refers to tsaras, this spiritual skin affliction on a person, on a household, or on clothing. Divrei elu, it says divrei, when it says divrei in the pasuk, it says keep and padavar and then the pasuk continues and says divrei rivos b'sharecha. So the word divrei refers to this refers to the consecrations to the temple, which are called haramim. That is something that is a vow where you say, using the word cherem, and you're saying everything is hektish, erech, where you say, I'm going to give the value to the temple, or hekdeshos, where you consecrate something to the temple. Rivos, the fight, this refers to ashkas, sota, the giving of water to the sota to drink. Arifas, egla, and also the breaking of the neck of the calf. Vitaras, mitzora. So all of these things come about because there's a fight, the purification of mitzvah, because the person was gossiping. And so the Eglah Rufa because there was a fight. And Rashi says also Negaim come because of the fight of Lashon Hara. So all these things happened because of a fight. The bitter waters of the marriage broke down Rahmana Litzlan. Bisharecha, in your gates. And this refers to Leket Shechav Peah. If you have an argument, if the dispute is about Leket Shechav Peah, because they are poor people, and it says about the poor people in the Torah of the Achlu Bisharecha, they will eat in your gates. Vikamta, and you shall go up. Vikamta, you shall go up from the current Bezdin. Ve'alisa, and you shall go up. This teaches us that the Holy Temple is higher than the land of Israel. The Eretz Yisrael gavoa mikol ha'arotza. So the fact says you go up, we see that no city was as high as Jerusalem, and we know that Israel was higher than all of the other lands. The Gemara is going to explain to us further on how do we know that Eretz Yisrael is higher than all the other lands, but it means symbolically it's higher, but the Gemara is going to prove a point that it's actually higher. El Makom, to the place. Melamed Sham Makom Gorem. This teaches us that the place, the location of the high court, that's what causes it to take effect. Meaning to say, he's only becomes a Zakei Mamre if he argued with the Bezin Hagadol while they were in session in the Lishkas Hagadol. That's the only time he's going to be considered a Zakei Mamre. So now we continue. So the Gemara says, I know that the temple is higher than the land of Israel because it says, the Olisa, you shall go up. So how do I know that the land of Israel is higher than all the other lands? No way. What's the source? Because it says, it says in the verse in Jeremiah, behold, the days are coming. And below Yomru, the people will no longer say, Chaya Hashem Asher Alas B'nei Yisrael Me'eretz Mitzrayim, Kim Chayim Hashem Asher Alav Asher Aviyah Zera B'Eretz Yisrael Me'eretz Tzafona Mikol Ha'arotz Asher Yidachtem Sham V'Yashvu Ad Masam. It says people no longer say, long live the God who took up the children from the land of Egypt, but rather they will say Hashem is alive, the one who took them up from all the lands. From all the lands where they went to. We see that Eretz Yisrael is higher than all the lands. Tan Rabbanan, Gemara tells us, Zakein Mamre Eino Chayiv El Al Davar Shazodono Karis V'Shigaso Chatas. We're going to see three positions about what a rebellious elder can be liable for. Rabbi Meir says the rebellious elder is only liable for something which is a penalty of kares if you do it intentionally, or a sin offering if you do it accidentally. Rabbi Yehuda says Al Davar Sheikaro Midivrei Torah Upirusho Midivrei Sofer. No, Rabbi Yehuda says something for which the essential law is from the Torah, but the rabbis, the Sofrim, they're the ones who elaborate on this law. Whereas Rabbi Shimon says, "Afilu diktuk echami diktuke Sofrim." Rabbi Shimon says even one more minor point, one inference from the diktuke Sofrim by the Sofrim of the Torah. So those are the three positions. Is it just a law of kares, or is it something essentially from the Torah, or even just a inference from the Torah, if it's even a dispute about that? So the Gemara now says, my time with Rabbi Meir, what's the reason why Rabbi Meir says it has to be something that was significantly kares? He learns out the word, basically it says by the verse about the Zakein Mamre, it says Ki Poemim Chadavar, and also it says about the fact that the Jewish people commit a sin. It says Davar. It says, so we learn out Xerishah from the word Davar, Ksiv Hacha Ki Poemim Chadavar Mishpat, the Ksim Hasam, and it says by a communal offering for a sin, V'ne'alam Davar Me'enei Kahal. The community didn't realize that they sinned. Malal and Davar Shachayv al Sedono Karis al Shigach Sochat. It's just like the communal sin offering. It's where if they did it intentionally, it was kares, accidentally is a sin offering. Avkan davar shachayv al zedono kares al shigat sochatet. So here too, it's something, has to be something which if you did it intentionally, be kares. If you do it accidentally, it's a sin offering. For Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda says that it has to be something that's essentially from the Torah, but then the inference is from the rabbis, or the explanation or elaboration is from the rabbis. Rabbi Yehuda says, based on the fact, Al Pia Torah Sher Yerucha, Ad Ika Torah V'Yerucha. So it says in the pasuk, Al Pia Torah Sher Yerucha, on the base of the Torah that he will teach you, meaning to say that there has to be Torah, has to come from a law of the Torah, and has to be Yerucha, and then the rabbis give a teaching about it. And Rabbi Shimon says even a Diktuke Sofrim, there was, by the way, a very famous work called Diktuke Sofrim, a tremendous work of scholarship that goes through all the girsos of the Rabbanim. So I think that was done by Rabinowitz, I forget, but it's just an incredible work of scholarship. So what's the basis for Rabbi Shimon? He says, Asher Yagidu Chamen Makomahu. The pasuk says that they will speak to you from that place. It means to say Afilu Koldahu. Even anything that they say from that place is enough to make the person liable. He says, explain to me this Brisa according to Rameir. Rameir says everything has to be kares. Now, what about the Brisa we said above, which said all the halachos? How can all of those be kares? So Amalei Rava or Rav Papa, Pok Turgamaway. So he says, so Rava says to Rav Papa, you go out and you explain it to him. You explain it to Rav Huna. So Rav Papa goes and he starts explaining this whole brisa. He says ki poe, which we had said b'muflash of bezin akasim bedaber. So okay, that means the expert on the court. Mimech, that refers to a yoetz. Sheyodeu aber shanim. He knows how to make a leap year. Look for chadashim and to establish new months. Kedetnan, as we said. So how can this point be a punishment of kares? Because it states in Edios, they established that you can make a leap month, the entire month of Adar. They had to say that they could do it. Why did the mission of Edios? Why did they establish they could do it all the way the month of Adar? Because there were some who said that it could only be done until Purim. This is the connection, this is the daf yomi for Purim. So some said Purim was the last day, but in Edios they established that the law was not like that it could be done all the way up until the end of Adar. And so how could it be a penalty of Pares? If you allow it, if you allow one question, you could be allowing chametz on Pesach. If you say that it's a leap year, when it's not, then you're allowing chametz on Pesach. And if you take the other side, kasher chametz on Pesach. So either way, it could be a big problem, and so therefore it could end up being chametz on Pesach. What's about the next point in the brisa? Keep olemim chadavar. That refers to the brisa said. That refers to halacha Moshe Misinai. So how is that halacha Moshe Sinai? Zu hilchos achadasar. This refers to the law of is halacha about the ziva. The ziva is every woman has a cycle of 7 days of nida and 11 days of ziva, and so there is a dispute about the 11th day. The itmar is halacha Moshe Sinai, because we learned Rabbi Yochanan Amar Asiri Kichi, Reish Lakish Amar Asiri Ka'achadasar. So Rabbi Yochanan says the 9th day of that 11-day cycle is always going to be considered. The 10th day is always like the 9th day. And Reish Lakish says the 10th day is like the 11th day. What does this mean? Rabbi Yochanan Amar Asiri Kichi, the 10th day is considered like the 9th day. Machi Bari Shimor, just like the 9th day you require Shimor, meaning to say that if she experiences some dams going out from her body on the day 9, she has to look at the next day as completely clean. And so too, the 10th day requires that as well. Afasiri by Shimor, whereas Reish Lakish says, Asiri ka'achadasar. No, the 10th day is like the 11th day. Ma'achadasar will by Shimor, just like the 11th day, that if you have if she has a first discharge upon her second discharge, she doesn't observe the next day as clean, but she can be with her husband that night. So too, Asiri will buy Shimor. So too, the 10th day does not require it. And this is something that's a law, halacha Moshe Sinai, according to Reish Lakish. So we see if there's a dispute about that and you get a ruling and they argue, that's going to be considered to be something that fits into the category of Zaki Mamre. And what about when it says the next phrase of the Bride? So it says Mishpat. This refers to Ze'adin, which we said is Gzeira Shava. Which Gzeira Shava is a case of Kares? Din Bito Meanusa. So this refers to the case on top of Pezayin on the base. This refers to the case of a person, daughter who was born from a woman who he was with without marriage. The Amarava Amarli Rav Yitzchak bar Avudimi Asya Hena Hena Asya Zima Zima. Meaning to say, we learn out through Xera Shava that she is going to be prohibited, even though she wasn't married to him, and that's learned out from Xera Shava. So if he's with her, that will be a punishment of Kares. What about the fact, the next part of the Brisa, which says Bein Dam Ladim, Bein Dam Ladam? What does that mean? So that the Brisa had said Bein Dam Nida, Dam Leda, and Dam Ziva. That refers to the blood of Nida, the blood of a woman who's in her 7-day cycle, the woman of a blood who gave birth, and the woman of a blood of Ziva. Dam Nida, how is that Kares? But Pukta Kavya Ben Mahal Rabbanan. This is the dispute of the Kavya Ben Mahal and the Rabbanan. In the Mishnah Nida, because we learned Dam HaYarok, let's say the blood is Yarok, which today we translate as green, but that in the time of the Talmud, Yarok was really yellow. And that's why the Talmud says sometimes Yarok, when it means green, it's Yarok Kikarti, green like a leek. So Akav Ben Mahal says it's Tamir, Chachamim say it's Tahor. So that's a dispute. If a woman is a Nida, and she's with her husband, it's Kares. So that's the question. Which is it? So Akavi Ben Mahal says it's Tamir, Cham says Tahor. And what about the Dam Leda, the blood of the birth? This is the Pukta de Rabbi Levi. This is maybe the most confusing part of today's daf. This refers to the dispute. Oh, Esther was also considered Yarok, right? The Gemara, she is pointing out. The Gemara Megillah says that that Hadassah was, that she was green, and she was Yarok. So that's, yeah, very good Shia. So therefore, the Pukta de Rabbi Levi, the Imar about the Dam Leda, a woman who gives blood after birth. Now, the first 7 days for a boy and the 14 days for a girl, the Dam Leda is considered tahor. It's not impure blood. And after that, the next 33 days for a boy and 66 days for a girl, it's considered Dam tahor. It's pure blood. So let's see how it's relevant here. The Gemara tells us, Rav Amar Mayan Echadu, because Rav says, why is this the case? Rav says there's one source in the woman, and that gives out blood. It's the same blood that is Tameh and Tahor. HaTorah Timatu, VaTorah Tiartu. The Torah is the one that says whether or not it's Tameh, and the Torah tells us that it's Tahor. It means it's the exact same blood. The Torah is just telling us what's Tameh and what's Tahor. Nistama Tameh, Niftach HaTahor. Well, excuse me. Levi Omer Shnei Mainos. Levi says, no, there are two separate sources here. And then once the Tameh blood is closed up after 7 days or after 14 days for a girl, then the other Mayan opens up. Nista Niftach HaTahor. Nista Matahor, once the blood that was pure is closed up, Niftach HaTameh. And so obviously that's the dispute. But how is this relevant to a case of Kares? So there we have to go back to the Gemara in Nida Lam and Hayamabes, where let's say the case will be where there was an ongoing flow of blood and the blood didn't stop. So according to the first approach, it's going to be Tameh, whereas according to the second approach, since it's an ongoing flow of blood, it has the purity or it has the preceding status. It doesn't change automatically. What about Dam Ziva, the blood of the Ziva? So Pukta de Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua. This is the dispute of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. It's not because we learned about the following. In the Mishnah Nida is the last tractate in the Shas. So we have some time, but it's a very difficult tractate. It says, Kishta Shlosha Yamim B'toch Achar Yom. Within her 11 days of Ziva, let's say she was in labor for 3 days. And so therefore, if she stopped her labor for 24 hours and then gave birth, then she's like somebody who gave birth in a state of Ziva. And so therefore she can't start her days of the Torah blood until she first counts the Zion Shiva Nikiyim, the 7 clean days. So therefore, she first has to have Shiva Nikiyim if she gives birth while she's a Yoledes Bezov. That's the position of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Shua says, Laila v'yom b'leilu Shabbosos v'yomo. So it has to be Laila v'yom k'leilu Shabbosos v'yom. It has to be a night and a day, starting at the night and going through the day, just like the nights of Shabbos. Shafta min hatzar v'lo min adam. It means that she had relief from the pain, but not from the blood. So that's a fundamental dispute, which will have relevance for Nida, whether or not we view the blood as tahor tameh. What about bein din with din, bein din mamnos, din nefashos, and din makos? This relates to capital cases, monetary cases, and lashes. How so? How can be a din mamnos, which is kares? That's the pukta de Shmuel Rabbi Abod. Amar Shmuel shnayim shadano din and din. Shmuel said at the very beginning of our tractate, if 2 people are a judge, it's a valid judgment. It's called a chutzpah court. Rabbi Abo says a different call ein din. According to everybody, it's 2 people that judges it is not a valid law. So therefore, how do we get to a case of kares over here in this case? So Rashi says that the reason why you get to a case of kares here is because we're not sure if it's your money. And then if he goes and he betroths a woman with that money, which you're not sure if it was yours or not, then all of a sudden it's the punishment of kares because we're not sure if she's a married woman or not. And that could lead to this severe penalty because she'd be a married woman. So we have to know whose money it is. It's a little bit attenuated, but okay. Dine nefashos. So what about a capital case? Put the Rebbe v'Rabbanan. This is the dispute between Rebbe and the Rabbanan. The Tanya, Rebbe Omer, v'nasat nefesh tachas nefesh. Take a life for life. That refers to mammon. Hatomer mammon leinu nefesh mamish. Maybe it actually refers to an actual person. Never seen a mammon, never seen one mammon. I've come up mammon. So it refers to monetary case, and so therefore. It's the same idea that nefesh here refers to using money that is the question whether or not it's yours to betroth a woman. And dine makos, how could it be a case of lashes? This is the pukta of the Rabbi Shmuel v'Rabbanan. The Tanan makos b'shlosha mishum Rabbi Shmuel amar b'eser b'shlosha. So whether or not you get lashes in front of 3 or in front of 23. How are we going to say that this is a case of kares? Because if the court gives the lashes when they weren't supposed to, then they have to pay money to the person who was struck improperly. And so therefore, if they took the money unfairly, then it would be stolen money. And if you betrothed the woman with that, it's a question whether or not she was actually betrothed or not. Okay, now the next case, Benego and Nega, it relates to Tzaras, Benigi Adam, Nigi Batim, Nigi Begadim. It relates to afflictions of a man, a person, Tzaras on a house, Tzaras on clothing. Nigi Adam, how is it a dispute with respect to the afflictions on a man? This is the Pukta of the Rabbi Shua Rabbanan, the Tananim Baharas, Kadam Seir, Alavan, Tameim, Seir, Alavan, Kadam Baharas, Tahor, Safik Tami, Rabbi Shua Omer, Keha. Rabbi Yeshua says it is faint. So we're talking about a case if the Baharis came before the white hair, then the Baharis is Tameh. If the white hair came before the Baharis, then it's Tahor. If we're not sure, it's Tameh. Whereas Rabbi Yeshua says it is Keha. My Keha, what does that mean? Amarava Keha Tor, it's Tahor. And so therefore they're having a dispute. So how does this relate to Kares? So if a person is Tameh and they go into the base of Mikdash, then they're going to get Kares. So the question, we have to know if they're pure or not. Nigei Batim, beflooked the Rebbe Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbanan, because we have a dispute. Rebbe Elazar, Rabbi Shimon says, "Oh, I made a bias Tameh ad sheyera ekesh nik ritzen." B'shtei Solim B'Karen Zavis Arko K'Shnei Kisim V'Rachel K'Gris. That Rabbi. But Rabbi Shimon says it's only going to be tamei if you have the tzaras on the house in the corner the size of two basically beams on the corner on each side. That's the position of Rebbe Lazar, the Ben Rabbi Shimon. And my time with Rebbe, whereas my time with Rabbi Shimon, Ksiv Kir, Ksiv Kiros, Ezu Kir, Shuki Kiros, Avamar Zekar, and Zavis. So that's the corner house. So they're basically, if you're going to make the house tzaras, then anyone who goes in there and then goes into the base of Mikdash is kares. And so therefore we can have this problem. And then the last case is Nigei Begadim. Nigei Begadim, how do we get to that? This refers to the Pukta to Rabbi Yonasan and Thomas Rabbanan, the Tanan, Rabbi Yonasan, Thomas Rabbanan, Minayin, Pricha, Begadim, Sheita Hora. How do we know that if the Torah spreads all over the clothing that it is Tahor? Nemra Karachas v'Gabachas ba'Adam, and Nemra Karachas v'Gabachas ba'Begadim, Ma'alan, Parach b'Kol Afkan Parach b'Kol. So he's of the position that the Torah spreads over the entire garment, it's Tahor. And that's the minority position. And then the question whether or not you're tahor or not, and if you go into the base of Mikdash, you're going to get kares if you're not really tahor. Okay, we'll stop here. This is the daf for Purim. As you see, it mentions Purim.